The
Coming
most
up on
common
Unleash
misconception
Thyself.
is thinking that they don't want to learn or they're stubborn. Like everyone has a need to grow and learn. And I found that most every animal just enjoys like I have two guinea pigs too that I train how to do little dog training things. Like if I knock on the side of their crate, they'll run up their stairs and come up to me. And to do these things, it's all very simple. Training a dog to come is the same principle. So I think taking that on as, like, an opportunity to get to do this, like we talked about problems, this is an opportunity, you get to do this, like, what's great about this problem is, like, you're aware of it, and there's people out there who have solved this, and that's what I did when I ran into trouble with Bumblebee. I was like, "Who here has already solved this? How can I compress decades into days?" And just be humble and just learn and be a student.
Mhm. Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to Unleash Thyself, a podcast where we journey into the depths of personal transformation, spirituality, and growth. I'm your host, Konstantin Morun, and today we have a special guest, a bit different than usual. His name is Brady Foulk. Brady is a dedicated dog trainer with a passion for empowering puppies, dogs, and their owners to achieve greater success and harmony at their home and around town. Now, with years of hands on experience, he's honing his skills in canine behavior, obedience, emotional support, and service dog training. And we can see a beautiful puppy right behind him if you're watching this on YouTube. Now, Bradley firmly believes that a well trained dog is a happy and confident dog, and his mission is to empower dog owners like you and I with the knowledge and tools to create a peaceful and loving home themselves. With that, Brady, welcome to the show. I'm so excited for our conversation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. And I want everyone listening now, if you have a dog, you're in the right place. We're going to talk about dog training. I can't help myself. Like, curiosity was looking at something out the window and, like, I can dog train and listen. And it's like part of who I am now. It's kind of interesting separating myself from being a dog trainer at times where I'm just Brady. But anywho, we're also going to talk about leadership and how I use this from a day to day perspective with my girlfriend or with friends and family, and how this applies to all areas of your life.
Yes, exciting. And you know what? A thing came up for me right away. So you were training curiosity because she was doing something that you're like, you know what, this might not be a behavior I want to encourage.
Yeah.
How do you discern between which behaviors you want to allow versus which ones you want to jump on right away to correct?
Yeah, that's a great question. That's a very nuanced question because it depends on what you're focusing on right now.
Hmm.
Curiosity is looking at some dogs passing through the window. And so we've been focusing a lot on her being calm while watching dogs. And she was doing it. So I rewarded her by calling her over to me. And then I asked her to go back to her bed a few times. So it was part of it is catching them while they're doing something good, so she was doing it right by just watching and not barking, which is great, so then it's like I wanna encourage that by, like, her coming over to me. So, that's something some people wait until their dog makes a mistake, so I'm, like, trying to be ahead of the curve.
That's a great point because that's what I was thinking as well. As you're talking, I'm like, oh wait, how many times have I only corrected my dog as opposed to rewarding because they were doing something they're supposed to do, and I only looked for the times that they were behaving inappropriately for whatever the behavior was. Okay. That's a good one right off the bat. So let me ask you this. Let's kind of take it back a step. Why dog training?
Yeah, that's a fun question because I grew up with dogs, I was blessed to grow up with dogs. And they were the type of dogs that would run away almost daily. They would get into the trash cans, and how my parents managed it was a lot of intimidation,
Hmm.
a lot of correcting behaviors, and or if they couldn't, they just gave up the dog to a new home, or
Oh.
found like a farm for it to go where it had more energy, right? It had more space to run, which is great for them. It's just like my parents, like, we don't know how to handle all this energy.
Hmm.
So, when I was 22, I got my first dog, and I was like, "All right, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna buy all the best treats, all the best food, the best dog beds, the best crate, like, everything, the best toys," and I did, and I bought all these things, and yet I there was a day where my friends I had had him for, like, 6 months, and we had our ups and downs, ups and downs, and my friends were like, "You haven't seen us in forever, man, like, come hang out with us," and I'm like, well, this puppy, I can't leave him for that long because he barks in his crate if I were to leave him, and he doesn't know how not to, like, eat things, and ugh, But anywho, my friends ended up convincing me, and I was like, "All right, I can be gone for like an hour, okay? Like that's as long as
Mhm.
he can go." And I went out with my friends. I had a great time. I came home. I opened the door, and like the first thing that hit me was this smell, and I was like, "Something is wrong." So I walk into my room and I open the door, and like Bumblebee is just wiggling his tail, and just looking at me and is like, "Look what I did, Dad. Look what I did." And I look around and there's like 4 piles of poop, and I'm like, "Oh, I need to go rent like a carpet cleaner tonight because this is disgusting." It's like 11 o'clock at night, and then I look to the right and there's like a chunk of carpet missing, and I'm like, "Oh, there's my deposit," and that was like $1,500, $1,000 at the time, and I was like, "Oh, this is terrible." And then like my Tim Ferriss Tools of Titans book that I had just got was like shredded, like the first 40 pages, and I was like, "You couldn't pick the old book, like the book that I already read." It was like the brand new book. That was my rock bottom, and I don't know if anyone who's listening here right now is at their rock bottom with their dog, because that $1,000 deposit, I'd much rather have paid for a dog trainer at the time, because that's what I ended up doing anyways, and I was like, wow. So yeah, I found a mentor, I found a coach. Susan Garrett is her name. She's brilliant. She's a 30 plus time world agility champion, and she plays a lot of games. So
Mhm.
Bumblebee and I, we learned how to play hide and seek out of his crate. And like he would wait, I would go and hide, and he would come find me. And we're practicing coming when called, and we're practicing crate training because he would run back into his crate to play another game. We practiced walking on leash. We practiced retrieve. We got really good at a lot of things. And as we were continuing to play, there were still problems, because I want everyone to know there's always problems in life. The only people who don't have problems, for anyone who wants to know who doesn't have problems, are people who are dead. Right? So having problems is a sign of life, and we just want quality problems. So Bumblebee and I had gotten better at a lot of things. There's still things we need to be worked on, like he was chewing on the Wi-Fi cable, and
Mhm.
there were still some moments that he wasn't the best, and so we were working through these moments. And I had gone to work, and one of my neighbors called me, and they're like, "Hey, there's some like weird. Your dog's making weird sounds in the backyard." And so I decided to like set up a camera to see like what he was doing in the backyard. And my roommate came and called my dog to him, and then kicked him and punched him.
Oof.
And man, that lit a fire inside of me, that day I'll remember forever, because I learned that being a leader and, like, getting results is not the most important thing in life. There's, like, a way to do things, and, like, I called the police, I reported it, and, like, police like, "Nothing we can do, you just get a new roommate." So I did get a new roommate, but I learned that you can lead through intimidation, like we talked about. We can lead through games, and we can lead through bribes. And only one of these options is going to let you be an inspiring leader. The other one is going to be intimidating, and bribes. The challenge with bribes is they're looking at you and they're like, "I want something better." So I just like to remind people to think of people in their past that have intimidated or bribed them, and how did it feel? And I'm pretty sure you're still not working for them anymore. Um, and for me, I can remember people who inspired me to do the hard things. I have like my fifth grade teacher in my mind. I have like one of my soccer coaches in mind. I have like these people in my life that I would do the hard things for. So I say all this just to remind people, it's how you are remembered by your dog. That's important, isn't it?
Yes. That's
And
such a powerful story, Brady.
yeah. And when you get furious, get curious. They're always telling us something.
But let's talk about that part actually. That's actually powerful right there. I've learned in my life that if something upsets me, it's not about whoever upset me, it's about me. And I would imagine with dogs it's no different because I see when like I get upset with my dogs, it's actually I'm upset with something that I've done or something I'm not looking within myself. So what's your take on that? What have you seen?
Yeah, there's quite a few things, because we can talk about how dogs have their own needs that we're looking to fulfill. So sometimes if a dog is getting into trouble, they need some more variety in their life. They need to be taken out more. They need to be taken places and worked on things. And it also means growth. And sometimes I see people looking at their dogs like they should be like a seventh or an eighth grader on like this scale from kindergarten to PhD, and their dog's like in first or second grade. And so it's like checking your expectations and like looking at it in do land. We spoke about it a little bit earlier, but this idea of like, what do you want them to do rather than like, stop this, stop this, stop this? Because right now, Constantine, if I tell you, do not think of a banana or don't press that red button.
It's gonna be on your mind, right? Your mind. That's funny because your brain, we know from science, cannot tell the difference between like what's fake and real, right?
Totally.
And it's like, oh, don't do that. It's actually that's what you put the focus on. So I can, I never clued on me to actually think about animals the same way. When you tell them something or not to do something, it can be the same as a human in a way.
Yeah. It's completely the same way. And dogs are even more simple. So they pick up really quick. Like I tell people that the average dog can learn 165 words.
Wow.
And that's Chihuahuas, Pomeranians, German Shepherds, Curiosity is a mini Aussie Doodle, and everything in between. So most dogs can learn 20 to 30 words pretty easily. Curiosity, we'll talk about that little nuance too. Because I woke her up with a treat, and people were like, "Are you crazy? Why would you wake up your dog when she's doing something good?"
Yeah, let's talk about
Because you want her to keep doing the good thing, right?
it. Is there
Yeah.
a balance or a harmony you're looking to find, or like how often do you reward the good thing? Because like I see you do it, let's say every 5, 6, 7 minutes. Is there like a balance you found or like a sweet spot where like obviously you don't want to do it every 30 seconds, or maybe you do? I don't know.
Yeah, no, there's totally a sweet spot. You're kinda like a casino at times, and there's moments where I just look at her like, "Hey, good job. Way to go." And I could just tell her good job, or we could play, or like I could toss a toy, or I could give her a treat.
Mhm.
So it kinda just all depends. The timing of it is yeah, I wanna be the type of person that is looking for the good in someone and constantly reinforcing someone being receptive and flexible and appreciative and joyful and playful, and I think it's all great to continue to, like, reward and encourage these things. I think we need more of it in life.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Let me ask you this. This comes up for me a lot. What are some of the biggest misconceptions you see when it comes to the relationship between a human and a dog? Even if I'm a new pet owner or I've had dogs all my life.
Yeah, the most common misconception is thinking that they don't want to learn or they're stubborn. Like everyone has a need to grow and learn. And I found that most every animal just enjoys like I have two guinea pigs too that I train how to do little dog training things. Like if I knock on the side of their crate, they'll run up their stairs and come up to me. And to do these things, it's all very simple. Training a dog to come is the same principle. So I think taking that on as, like, an opportunity to get to do this, like, we talked about problems. This is an opportunity, you get to do this, like, what's great about this problem is, like, you're aware of it, and there's people out there who have solved this, and that's what I did when I ran into trouble with Bumblebee. I was like, "Who here has already solved this? How can I compress decades into days?" And just be humble and just learn and be a student.
Mhm.
I'm still a student. Trust me, curiosity gave me some stumps that we can talk about too, but yeah, I'm constantly learning, and it's the best part about it is, like, I'm constantly learning. You just get better and better at solving problems.
That's a beautiful testament to essentially our journey as a human being, right? It's
Yeah.
always about growing and, well, ideally, right? Because when you stop growing, you start dying. And that's what happens in nature as well. And it's a beautiful example with dogs as well, right? Because I know you and I talked offline about this, but I'm curious to see if you can expand a bit more on this idea that when it comes to dog training, it's not about the actual dog, it's so much more about you, the person facilitating the training. Hey, it's Konstantin here, and I want to take a brief moment to truly thank you for being a part of this incredible journey of transformation. You are the reason we are creating this content. I see you and I appreciate you. Your support truly means the world to me. I want to ask you for a small favor. I'd love for you to join our mission by hitting like, subscribe, or leaving a thoughtful comment or review. Your engagement helps others discover these insights, and together we can continue to unlock the power of authenticity and personal transformation. Thank you for being a part of this movement. Now, back to the episode.
For sure. It's a lot about how you show up for the training, it's a lot about how you prepare for the training, it's a lot about how how you see the situation. Like we've been talking about this a lot of like the power of don't versus do. And I just like to remind people too of like when they're coming from a place of frustration, do you get the best results when you're frustrated compared to when you're like in a loving and appreciative state? You just can be a little bit more creative. And again, it helps having a plan too. Like most dog training sessions I go into, I have a plan. And that way I think about it in like practice and games. So there's
Mm.
moments for practice and like we practice set plays and like different pieces of dog training, like how to sit, how to stay, how to play tug with me, like these different parts of dog training, how to come when called. And then we take it out to a game type situation and we get feedback from them for like how well we've trained these things. Because I believe our dog is just a reflection of our training based on the environment that they're in. So it's just taking radical responsibility for like, if my dog is doing this, it's because of me. And I'm constantly looking at, even from a standpoint of like dogs being reactive on leash, because there's this fascinating study that they took people and they separated them into two groups. One of these groups watched a very scary movie, like The
Mhm.
Shining, for example, and whatever's scary to you, clowns, you know. And the other set of group of people watched a very happy movie, an inspiring movie like Frozen or like whatever's happy for you. And they took sweat swabs from both of them, and then they had a bunch of people on their dogs come, and then they had a researcher in the other corner of the room. And in the center of the room, they had the sweat from the scary first, and they put the scary sweat out there. The dog walked over to the sweat. It smelled it, and some dogs just ran out of the room and would not go back in the room.
Mm.
Most of them went and like cowered underneath their owner's feet and like wanted nothing to do with this person on the other side of the room. They like saw this person, smelled this smell, and it was like, this is bad. Like saw this person, smelled the smell, get out of here. Some dogs like would bark or growl at him. It just depends on fight, flight, or freeze, you know? Like we all got our own unique
Yeah.
ways of responding. And then the second group of people, they put the happy smell from the happy movie in, and the dog smelled it. And guess what they did? They got excited. They went and saw the person. They like played down and like got playful. Some dogs sat and like was like, "Hey, do you see me?" And like asked like, "Do you want to pet me?" And it was all related to the smell that they smelled. So they smelled this they saw this person smelled the good smell, and then they did their thing that they had been trained to do to get them attention. And it's this idea of how often are you like in a fearful or anxious state, and like you're putting off the smell because you're thinking about what could happen with your dog. You're telling yourself a story of like, what if this happens? And so you're releasing these chemicals, these sweats, and then your dog smells that, and they see this person, and then they see this person, they smell that, and they go, "This is scary. I need to protect you. I need to do something." Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, it does. I mean, as you're talking about that, a lot of thoughts come up because so I have a German Shepherd and Border Collie. Border Collie is 5.5, German Shepherd is 3 years old. Beautiful dogs, very friendly. But my Border Collie, she has this, I'll call it phobia, for like when people play with the basketball, like if you walk by kids or if they run or if she sees a bike and she gets very nervous and starts to growl. And sometimes even, try to bark at them, right?
Yeah.
And the German Shepherd just looks confused, and all she wants to do is like say hi to everyone. But if she sees a bird or like anything moving, she wants to chase it.
Yeah.
And I look at it and I'm like, that's curious. Because I remember with my border collie when she was growing up, we live in a town home. So there's like about 6 townhouses connected. And next to us, there was a neighbor that they had a kid that was playing basketball every day. And then that sound kept coming into our home all the time. And now when she hears the sound, she like loses it, especially if it's outside. So I can see like you're talking about the smells, right? But I feel it goes even deeper than that. Energy, sounds, body language. I can only imagine how deep the rabbit hole goes in this regard.
Yeah, it's any of their senses. Like you can use any sense to condition anything to. And I wanna also acknowledge, like, yeah, some dogs just get afraid of certain things themselves. It's not you always admitting the smell. But as this pattern continues, you may have some anxiety around going
Yeah.
around basketball courts. So it's kind of like a cycle in some ways, because you're like, oh, they're gonna do this, and then they do it, and you're like, oh, I knew it, but then like, it's a
That's
whole thing.
reminding me of, because I mean, on where we walk, it's through a neighborhood, but then we have paths, and then let's say people have basketball hoops in their front yard, and then I see one from far, I'm like, oh, okay, here we go again. We're gonna go by. She's gonna bark,
Yeah.
right? And you don't think about that. It's like, oh wait, she can pick up on that even though she's not paying attention to me, in quotation marks.
Yeah, and there's also think dogs are super smart, so they're, like, anticipating, like, 5 or 6 triggers even that you're ahead of. Like, they're hearing things you don't hear, smelling things you don't smell, so
Yeah.
they're ahead of you in many ways.
So what's the answer then? Not the answer. I mean, one of the answers potentially for something like this. Anyone listening, like, if you know that there's something bad that your dog can do because of a trigger, and you can see the trigger up and you're getting yourself worked up, is the answer just as simple as catching yourself in the act and then removing that, well, working through the trigger and bringing more positivity into it, less fear?
Yeah, I wanted people to know, like, I'm a big positive guy, but I'm also a big action taker. There's a huge difference between, um, knowledge and or willpower and do power, or knowledge and action. And so we're gonna talk about this, and then we're also gonna like go into like the steps to take because I feel like that's
Hmm.
important because
Yes.
yes, you should be like checking your emotion and seeing where you're at emotionally because we always want to take this trigger, whatever triggers us for an emotion, to the response that we have from that. We just want to continue widening this gap. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. Yes.
Right?
Exactly.
And it's the same thing for our dog. We want them to be able to be thoughtful and to like see this thing and to be like, what options do I have? And one of his options right now is to bark and go crazy. You said another
Mhm.
one, it's to get excited and friendly, like your German Shepherd. And I've seen a million other options in between
Yeah.
of dogs deciding to do things. And I'm going to tell a story because it's a very simple story, but it goes to the point of when we want to change behavior, we want to have a clear focus on what we want. We should have leverage and we should know what the dog loves. So that way we can use either a gold, silver, or bronze reward. And I think most people are familiar with those, what each one
Mhm.
means. Um, and then we want to interrupt the pattern in playful ways. So my roommate and I, we used to live together in San Diego and we lived right next to the airport. And let me tell you, these airports are very consistent. They take off at the same time in the morning, like same time in the afternoon. The ending flights, those ones vary a little bit. But we were kind of getting sick and tired of these airplanes. And every time we would hear one, we would complain to each other and be like, this again. And it was kind of annoying. And one day we were just hanging out, we are drinking beers, and this airplane went out. And I looked at him and I go, cheers. And we cheers the beers, we take a drink. And I was like, all right, this is a little bit more fun than it is just like complaining.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then another airplane flew by and we said cheers and we took a drink. And this happened like another 15, 20, 30 times. And we were very drunk at the end of it. But it was a memory I'll always remember. And we didn't always do this, but it was such a significant emotional event in my life that it left a really impactful memory in my brain. So now every time I hear an airplane, I hear one right now. I think of this story. It's very serendipitous that I told it right now.
It's beautiful. Yes.
So it's this idea of understanding patterns, and patterns are very important. So the first three patterns I tell people about, and the only three patterns actually, is pattern recognition. Like and just realizing things are happening in a pattern. I remind people you have 60 to 70,000 thoughts a day, and 90% of them are the same thoughts you had yesterday. Right? Have you heard that to be true?
Exactly. Yes. I have. I've heard of it. I haven't looked into the research enough, but yes, I've heard of that.
Most people, when you have an identity, you ask the same type of questions like, how can I do this better? Or what am I missing? Or how can I appreciate different questions from my point of view? And so, pattern recognition, recognizing these patterns, and then pattern utilization, which is taking a pattern and allowing it to serve you in some way. So, curiosity, one thing that she would do that I didn't know would happen, like, and she loves sticks. She'll go out and she'll find sticks all over the yard and she would just chew on them. And I don't like them chewing on sticks because it's not the best for like them to swallow these sticks, problems could occur. And I like leaders anticipate, followers react. So I'm like thinking about ways to like anticipate this. And then utilizing the pattern though, I was like, okay, she loves sticks. So she like see a stick, pick it up, I chew on it. I like this taste. It's a good thing. I'm gonna keep doing it. And so I was like, okay, how can I utilize this? Her retrieve is pretty good, and she can retrieve a toy. So why can't she retrieve a stick? So I just taught her to bring me all the sticks, and then I take the sticks, I reward her for it, either with like a good job, or I'll play a game of tug with one of her toys that I do want her to play with outside, or sometimes I give her a treat, and then I throw away the stick. And then I go bring me another stick, and then she brings me another stick. And so now I just got a stick picker upper, and so I've utilized this pattern to serve me. Some people whose dogs who dig, I teach them to file their nails on like a scratching board, right? Because like the dog still wants to do the behavior, but like how can we use this thing? And then finally, pattern creation. And so this is how you create your own patterns and how you say like, well, my dog's always barking at the door. Like, how do I change that? Or my dog's barking at the basketball. Like, how do I create a better pattern with that? So with dogs, like I said, I talk about some of the structure part. Does this all make sense so far?
Totally, yes.
Totally.
Yeah,
So
good call.
when we're structuring these patterns, we we want to know what our dog loves, and so it helps playing with gold treats during this moment because it's an emotional challenge for our dog, just like it's an emotional challenge for us during these things. So we want to make sure we got good leverage on ourselves. So it's important for us to know why we're doing this, so we can
Mhm.
have a better relationship with our dog, so we can be more connected, so we can take our dog more places, so we can be a problem solver in our life and know that no matter what happens to me, I have whatever it takes inside of me to fix
Yeah.
my problems. Right. So it's important to know like the leverage on yourself, and then for our dogs, it's good to know what they enjoy doing. If they like toys or high treats. So I normally pull out the gold treats. And so at first, when the dog sees this basketball, I just want to do something that I haven't done before. So I want to interrupt their pattern as the next step. Interrupting their pattern could look in many different ways. Try to be as elegant as possible. Um, E-collar people use e-collars, prong collar people use prong collars, positive reinforcement, scientific based dog trainers, we're using brain solutions. So sometimes I jackpot and I'll just scatter a bunch of treats on the ground, and that like throws their brain off and they're like, what? This is wild. And they start looking for treats on the ground. Some dogs I will move away from the target, and I'll like move away until they can start thinking a little bit better. And then I'll toss some treats on the ground when I got some more focus on them. Some dogs, I'll ask them to do a nose boop and like touch their nose to my hand, and like that'll redirect their attention. Some dogs you could ask to sit. Some dogs you could ask to focus. And there's a bunch of different things you could train them to do to interrupt their pattern.
So it's about
Um,
finding. It's about finding. Is this the you talked about the bronze, silver, gold approach?
mhm.
What if only the gold method works in some of these situations? Do you go straight for that? Because I would imagine that's the highest reward treat you can give them. It could be a toy, like in my case, my border collie. She could care less about treats when we're
Yeah,
on a walk and this happens. But if I had one of her favorite toys, like a frisbee, a ball, maybe a water toy, she would be interested.
there you go. So whatever that is for you, I would use that thing just to make sure you stack the odds in your favor, because what ends up happening is as you study anchors, you can collapse an anchor. And so if something that's really bad to you and you do something that's really good, you can make this really bad thing become really good. But you
Mhm.
gotta make sure whatever that thing is really strong. So typically, before we even address this, I'm gonna make sure whatever your dog loves, we've attached like 3 or 4 games to it. So you can sit, you can nose bump, you can lay down. You got like a myriad of things that are attached to this toy or this piece of food, this gold food,
Yeah.
to make sure it's even stronger. So like when we see this thing, we can collapse this anchor. Because if it's weaker than this anchor, then this anchor will like take over this anchor, and now both things could be seen as like a trigger for the basketball in some ways.
Yeah, no, I get that. That's powerful. And what comes up for me in that regard, right? Because we were talking about working with the dogs in this sense, and it starts with us. And there's a saying that goes like, "You cannot teach an old dog new tricks," and I know that that's not true. But I'm curious to see your take on it. Like, how true is it? How old is too old to be teaching new tricks or working on these things, or is there such a thing?
Yeah, like to believe that everyone likes to learn. Some of my favorite videos on Instagram are like these people in nursing homes playing these different games, like as simple as they may be. Like you're still engaging your brain in certain like, I gotta wait, I gotta follow rules, I gotta like remember how to play this game. And I believe that anyone can learn forever. I believe it's a spiritual need to grow and to learn. So I feel like you should be doing it all the time. So I've trained old dogs like as old as like 14, 15 years old to do
Wow.
simple things. Simple things like go lay down on their bed, just like how to value being on their bed more. Or just how to like touch their nose to my hand. Super easy to train. And I've trained abused and neglected like farm animals. I've trained like I'm training a 16-year-old cat right now. There's there's learning that can be done for everyone if you get creative.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I say all that because they're obviously not going to be doing as many things as a puppy. So I just want to like manage people's expectations, right? So like you want to meet them where they're at in life
Yeah.
and you want to understand where they're at in their world. But you could teach them like one of my friend's dogs, her entire life, this husky, she did not like being picked up. Like,
Mhm.
she just and it just like, growing up, there's 3 ways to handle a problem. You can ignore it, you can manage it, you can train it, okay? It was just important to know. So, for most of her life, we just ignored it. She would jump in and out of the car herself. She's like, "I'm an independent woman, don't touch me." Like,
Yes.
we're like, "Okay, okay, you go, girl, slay." And so she would go and do all her own thing. There reached an age, though, where she couldn't stand up on her own, like, she was just too weak, and so it was, like, very towards the last like couple months of her life. And she could stand up on her own, but she was like struggling. Sometimes she would like slip on the wood floor. So we would like do the best to like make sure she's on blankets. But so what we did is we just practiced just like helping her nicely up and practicing lifting her up and then just rewarding her with just like our tone. We're like, oh my goodness, you're so amazing, Coda. Like, good job. And then we just practiced just like touching her and just nice picking her up and down. Um, all right, can you go lay down? Go, 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 go. I know, that was exciting, huh? Go lay down.
She's like, you're talking about dogs. I'm gonna come here to talk to you about that.
Yeah, that's a distraction too, because but that's just interesting to keep in mind as well, but yeah, Coda, we were able to help her just like being touched and like being lifted more, which just helped her towards the end of life, just, like, getting in and out of the car, giving her last few good experiences, and, like, taking her places and showing her around town, so I believe there's opportunities for everyone.
And I want to take a moment to acknowledge like what the beautiful moment that happened there between you and Curiosity, right? Because she came to you, right? You didn't change your demeanor. You weren't like, "Oh my god, what are you doing?" Go back to bed or go back to your place. And you gave the command, and it took a second for her to go back, but you didn't reinforce. You didn't like. So that's a beautiful reflection for me, right? Because sometimes I get it's like, "What are you doing? I told you to sit down there," right? It's like you get worked up, and then of course they pick up on it, and the excitement begins. So I'm curious in that moment, right, when you gave her the command and she didn't go back, how much time do you give her before you do something else? Or like, okay, she's not responding to the command I gave her.
Yeah, that's a brilliant question. I give them a few seconds, and it depends on each dog, but I'm working to build this gap and then shorten the gap for like how quick you can like remember what I asked you to do. But I believe in the power of letting them think. So like I'll give them a few seconds to think about it. Sometimes if a dog's just learning a game, I'll give them 15 seconds to think about it and to like really like weigh their options and to think kind of like it's a choice, right? They can choose. Um, and then I repeated the command at one point, and so she moved a little bit, and then I repeated the command. And like anytime you give your dog a command, it's reinforcing them, it's telling them good job. So
Mhm.
sometimes people keep saying their command when their dog's doing the wrong thing. And so
Ah,
you're training them to for that word to mean that thing is what's happening.
exactly, makes sense. Yeah, yeah. I know I have some situation in my life with people that come in and they're like, sit, 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 and they'll be laying down, and I'm like, well, now you're doing the wrong thing. But they're excited. The dog is excited. It's like, okay, well, I'm doing whatever. You're
Exactly.
you're giving me treats. I must be doing something right.
Yeah, and you're giving them your attention a lot of the time too. So you see, like I don't. get, like, all worked up about it. It's just, like, for me, it's information, and it's like, "Woo, woo, 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 woo. Good job." Like, when I make sounds, it's, like, to make sure that she understands, like, sounds don't mean, like, break position. Sound just
Yeah.
means they're just, like, white noise, you know? Because as we play these games bigger and you're at a restaurant, you want your dog to lay down. You want them to let the dogs pass. You want, like, things to, like, be able to move around their world, and they're just like, "Oh, yeah, things just happen."
Yeah.
You know? So, like, for me, it's information too. Like, I need to, like, proof sounds a little bit more and excitement. But also, like, yeah, I like staying in a good mood because it's just, like, information, and I don't believe you fail. No one fails unless you don't learn something.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. So I know, I mean, we talked about this offline, I mean, before we jumped live here, and I'm curious to bring it back to a discussion point around like it's not really about your dog, it's about you and learning how to interact with them and then how to be yourself in that moment. And we you touched on a lot of these points already, right? Is there anything else that we haven't touched upon when it comes to like how you should show up for your dog? Like, let's assume you're someone that works a crazy shift, right? Like, and you're tired and you come home and you don't necessarily have the energy or time or desire to be working with your dog. Like, how punishing is to skip days in this relationship you're building? Because if you think about any relationship in life, there is a cost to inaction.
Totally. And it comes down to, like, your life because sometimes people, they live a busy life, and I encourage them to look at their life before adding a dog into it because they do require energy and attention. I have a rule that I will always have energy for my dogs no matter what, and it's just something that I do, and I reinforce
Mhm.
myself, and I make sure, like, when I do that thing, I like, "Good job, Brady." Like, "You stepped
Yeah.
up, you did the thing." And, like, I celebrate, I tell myself, "Good job." A lot of times people forget to praise themselves, so remember to, like, reach your hand up, bend it, pat yourself on the back, tell yourself, "Good job." Give yourself a hug. Right? You're doing the things that make a difference. These dog training is compounding, and most people don't understand the power of compounding. 2 equals 4, 4 equals 8, 8 equals 16, 16 equals 32, 32 is 64. You keep stretching this out, and it moves very, very fast. And so as you keep stacking these days on each other, and you just got to train for 5 minutes. Like 5 minutes is all that like you really need. And if you can do it now, you can do it tonight, you can do it as many times as you'd like. 5
That's
minutes.
cool. That's it.
Yeah, so, it's powerful. It's very powerful just realizing, like, the power you have with your dog and to train, and so, like, I have a rule that I'll always, like, give them 5 minutes of playtime of, like, interaction, of training and growth, and if I were to give, like, another little nugget, it's this idea that dogs are spiritual beings. They
Mhm.
are here to teach us lessons, and sometimes I found people, they're like, "Well, my first dog was perfect," right? Like, they did everything great, just they just learned from the beginning, and sometimes the universe just blesses you, and I like when those things happen, you celebrate and you said, "Thank you," and you're like, "Send me more, this feels good." Right? And then sometimes the universe gives you some stretches, and these are things, these lessons that you need to learn because you already got that lesson. How boring would life be if you kept getting the same lessons over and over again, right? You get different problems, you just want better problems. So it's looking at these as just opportunities from the universe. Dogs backwards is God, right? So there's like, oh, that's very interesting. But anywho, whatever your belief system is, the universe is like, hey, here's something new. You have the opportunity to let fear or procrastination or anger or imposter syndrome or overwhelm or frustration get in the way. And or you can step up and look at this as an opportunity to like go find someone who's already solved this problem, go read something, go watch something, go do something, and to like tap into some of this potential that I know you have because all of us are very capable of doing incredible things, extraordinary things, and everyone here has done something like that, haven't you?
Exactly. That's such a beautiful message. 110% easily.
So tap into this because it's always there for you. Like you just got to remember it. And as you remember these feelings of doing this amazing thing, link it up to why you're doing it with your dog. And your result is to have a fun, connected, abundant, successful, loving relationship with your dog. And that involves for me playing games.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And ideally, relationship that's not based in a lot of fear, right? Because I look at some of my previous dogs. I've had dogs all my life as well. Not as much growing up, but more from like 18 years old and moving. And the more fear you bring in, the less fun that relationship becomes. I mean, it's the same as any relationship between you and a human being or anyone else, right? And the more fun you bring in, like you said, the more love you bring in, the more effortless it becomes, the more aligned, the more connected, and you have this beautiful journey. Because I know, like, when I walk with my dogs and I see some birds on the side of the street, there's pigeons, there's crows, there's ravens, and robins and whatnot. I know my German Shepherd is going to start to try to chase them. Right. So I get a bit antsy, and sometimes I'll be like, oh, I don't want to go on a walk on that path because I know those things will be there and it's going to take the fun out of it. But maybe there's no, maybe I know there is a different approach I can take. It's like, okay, well, like you said, that's a challenge. I'm being challenged with that, but I'm not actually decided to do anything with it. What if I actually looked at it as a challenge and say, well, how can I fix that? Or how can I get on the other side of it so I can get the love side, not the fear side of it?
Yeah. And the first step I ask is like, what do you want your dog to do in that moment? What do you
To
want him
look
to
at
do?
them and then just continue walking with me, not try to pull me in the direction of the birds. Because if I let her off leash, she would be chasing them.
Yeah. So you want her to stay close to you and to calmly and quietly watch the birds.
Exactly. Yeah, that would be the first thought that comes up. Yes.
So one reframe, and like I've gone through this with Curiosity. She enjoys the squirrels and bunnies, and I have two
Yes.
guinea pigs, right? So this small things moving is a common thing I find. You know what we do?
I'm curious.
We squirrel watch. So we'll like practice sneaking around and we turn it around and we go look for squirrels, but we practice being like very calm and like laying down on the ground and like crawling and like staying like low and crouched like we're little ninjas. And so like we'll be very calm watching these things and like I take on a different like identity. Like I could be a bird watcher. So when you're a bird watcher, you're different than a dog walker, aren't you?
Yeah, definitely. That's brilliant. I love that.
So you reframe it in your dog's brain too of like when we see birds, we're like on an extravaganza now. We're trying to see what birds and you'll start noticing some cool birds too. Like I notice all different types of squirrels. There's like so many different types of squirrels, man. Like, I had no idea. And there's some that are like super lazy and they'll just like lay down and just watch you pass by. And then there's some that take off super fast. And there's some, yeah, they're amazing. I'm gonna build like a squirrel obstacle course in my backyard.
There we go. That would be awesome.
So, do
That,
you think that'd be something that you could do though?
yeah, absolutely. So
Okay.
would you like for something like this, right? Because you can start doing that. Do you even bring treats into the equation or whatever the silver, gold, bronze options are to if the situation gets to where she starts chasing or she starts getting revved up?
It's interesting that you bring that up because that's the nuance of do you bring out the treats when she starts pulling, when she starts going crazy after them, and you wanna get the behavior before, so you wanna be catching them before it happens best. Now, if she's giving you these behaviors, it means you're too close watching these birds. So you
Uh,
need to observe from a further location, and you just need to spot them a little bit further back, where you start finding this point to where she can still listen to you and when she's a little bit too overwhelmed. So it's
yeah,
feedback to you, right, to back up from the distractions, back up from the squirrels. And then you want to make sure that you train this behavior before. So you practice at home and you're going to practice this before and then you're going to take it around and do it a few times. Like just like I said, laying down and crawling it's a unique behavior that and so I'll have them like crawl underneath my legs, which is a super fun way to teach this. And so I'll practice this at home with treats or with toys or with love. And
mhm,
normally it's a combination of all three, like you've seen me doing. And then I'll take it outside and then I'll see how far away I can do it from the birds. And I'll keep closing that distance and keep getting closer and closer to the birds as we're practicing our own squirrel watching or bird watching skills.
yeah, that's beautiful. I'll definitely have to try that out.
Yeah,
Now,
let
and
me know how you do.
exactly, I will. I will. And I know we were talking before we jumped on here that you just finished up a course. Tell us a bit more. Like, I mean, obviously, we cover so much beautiful information that people can apply right away. What can they find in the course you've created?
Yeah, the course is where I dive into the details of the games, of where how to teach your dog to touch their nose to your hand, and how I teach you to teach them to ignore food in your hand or ignore food on the ground, and how I teach you to practice playing hide and seek and playing
Mm.
these different games that I've mentioned. It's where I can get into like the nerdy stuff. Like I love it's hard for me to hold back the details in these things. I just like but you guys in the course, it's a great time for you to learn them because you'll just see the nuances that I don't have the time to explain here, which is great.
Of course. And we'll have the details for the course in the show notes as well. And I know you are active on Instagram and other social media handles. So where can someone find you quickly if they want to hear more of you?
Yeah, my Instagram is N like new, D like direction, dog training. So ND dog training. I'm posting different stuff that I'm training curiosity to ride a skateboard and all sorts of different tips and tricks. So
Pretty cool.
give me a
Yeah,
follow, please.
and I've seen some of the stuff. It's actually pretty fun to watch. And I mean, we all watch maybe a few too many cat videos and dog videos. So why not watch some of that stuff too?
Exactly.
Brady, this was brilliant. Now, before we wrap up for the day, is there anything else that comes up for you that you want to share that we haven't talked? Maybe something that ties into anything, or
It's this overall overarching idea that life is happening for you, not to you. So you've made it to this point to be listening to this now to maybe make a decision to go off and go learn some skills for your dog.
yes. What a beautiful message, Brady. I love it. Well, I want to thank you for your time. This was brilliant. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of personal transformation. Your presence and engagement are at the heart of what we do, and I sincerely appreciate you, your time, and thirst for knowledge, inspiration, and empowerment. Please consider showing your support by hitting like, subscribe, leaving a comment, or writing a review. Your engagement not only fuels our mission, but also helps others discover these insights. For more daily guidance on personal transformation across the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical realms, be sure to visit our website at unleashthyself.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Unleash Thyself Today, TikTok and YouTube at Unleash Thyself, and there we post daily content designed to inspire and empower you on your journey. If you have any specific thoughts, questions, or feedback, I truly value your input. I would love to hear from you. Together, we're building a community united in authenticity and purpose. Once again, thank you for being a part of this movement. Until next time, continue to embrace your true self and live a life on purpose with purpose. See you in the next episode.